Hello everyone, this is BritSimon. So after the last few days where we've been collecting a survey of information on case numbers, I was able to show some data for the Asia region and do a pretty good explanation of how case numbers would be spread out over the complete number range for Asia. In Asia, it's fairly easy because there's a couple of countries, Nepal and Iran, who are obviously limited. They're limited countries, and we know the maximum range. And so I was able to draw this sort of graphic, which is pretty accurate actually in terms of where the holes are. In this graphic, the yellow color here is an indication of how many holes there will be for each 100 cases. So in other words, these are percentages as we go through the range from 0 to 38,000. And I was able to point out to people in Asia that the Nepalese cases would stop at around about 10,000. And I'm talking about the allocation of winners, not cut-offs in terms of the final number. And then Iran, we're having to assume at the moment around about 19,000 as being the highest allocated case. That could vary a little bit because we don't have enough Iranian cases to really get a good idea, but we do have enough information on Nepal and the rest of Asia. And the rest of Asia is going to have a certain distribution, which I think is 23%. It's there. 23% of every case or every case number range, I should say, in Asia is going to be the rest of Asia. That's the rest of Asia is all the countries that are not Iran or Nepal. So I was able to calculate that with a little bit of a mathematical assumption here. It's actually pretty easy on Asia. It would be very easy on Oceania, and to some extent certainly South America as well, because why is it easy for those countries? Well, or for those regions, Oceania and South America don't have cut-off countries at all, and so it becomes quite easy to do that. And in Asia, the cut-off countries or the limited countries are obviously Nepal and Iran, so it's easy to understand that. And it gave us the idea of how many holes there are per 100 cases, and then this visualization shows how the number of holes will actually increase in later number ranges, which means that the case number in Asia could accelerate later on. Now, so let's think about applying the same sort of case to Europe. Let's see what we know about Europe and to see whether we can come up with a similar sort of understanding. So we know there are 45,000 selectees in Europe, and I mentioned the other day that based on DV2020 data, I could use a derivative rate of 1.95. Now, the derivative rate might be a little bit higher or a little bit lower than that because based on the countries that are selected, based on the number of selectees per country, there will be a slightly different makeup. You might find that more people from, I don't know, let's just pick a country. Maybe the people from Germany are perhaps older and more often married with children than the people from France. Now, I'm just making that up. That's not true. I'm just saying that if you look at the overall number of selectees, the derivative rate is somewhat determined by the mix of the countries, right? So this 1.95 number could be incorrect. But if it is correct, then we know that there are round about 23,000 likely cases, right? The survey told me that this expected highest case number, was incorrect. We actually now know that the highest case number for Europe is around about 40,000, just a little bit above 40,000, probably not above 41,000. Right? And we also know, interestingly, that there's been a sort of a fundamental change here in terms of the cut-off countries or limited countries. Here are the numbers of selectees for DV2021 for Europe. And we've got a few large countries where they get a lot of selectees, like Albania, etc. As we know, Uzbekistan and Ukraine have a lot of selectees. And in my first video, when I saw these numbers, I speculated that I believed these two countries in particular, Ukraine and Uzbekistan, are limited, meaning they were limited during the draw, and the number of selectees, the selectees for those two countries would get case numbers in the lower ranges. We now know, because of the survey, that that's not true, that there are Ukrainian and Uzbekistan cases right up to the full maximum number of 40,000 or so. The other country that we know is limited for sure is Russia, because that number 6001 is a repeated number you can see in other regions. 6002, 6001 is somewhere up here. Where are we? In Africa, for example, there are other countries that have that same number, right? So 6001 isn't a coincidental number, whereas you can see all of these other countries have, oddball numbers: 3957, 65, 71. They're all random numbers. There's no relation between them. But 6000 or 6001 or 6002 indicates to me that there is a process that has artificially limited the number of selectees during the draw process, and that's how we know when a country is limited. I also knew that Nepal was limited, and that's just based on experience. I know that they would be limited, and the case number survey proved that. So that's just something that I was based on my experience, right? So in Europe, we know that Russia is limited. We also know that that now we know these two countries, often called the U2 countries, are not limited, and there's no other country which is limited, which was artificially limited during the draw. I don't believe Albania was either. I've seen Albanian case numbers right up until the full range. In fact, I think the highest case number I know of, which is in the low 40s, low 40,000 range, I think that may be an Albanian case number. So I know for a fact that Russia is limited, and no other country is limited in Europe. However, I was able to get, somebody very kindly sent me some information, a DV2021 table of winners. There is a Russian language forum which collects data, and the Russian, this forum is quite good at actually gathering data. They do it every year, and I knew of its existence, but I didn't have access to the link, so I appreciate the person that sent me the link. And as you can see, there are names here against case number ranges, and it shows that there is a continuation of cases similar to what we've gathered, but stopping at around about 39,000, and those cases are Russian cases. That's Russia in Russian, I guess. So these are cases here. So the highest case number, Tbilisi, that's an Azerbaijan chargeability, I guess, and that's at 39,000. So you can see that they have case numbers in Russia that go up to almost the highest number. So to all intents and purposes, although I'm certain that Russia was limited in the draw, it appears that Russia got limited in, let's say, the last 1,000 numbers, the last 1,000 case numbers. So we might have Russian numbers right up to, let's say, 39.5 or even higher, almost 40,000. We probably don't have Russian numbers over 40,000, but they were limited, that's for sure, because of that 6001 number, but limited just before every other country is limited. Okay, what does that mean? Effectively, that means that we're not going to see the staggering that we've seen in other years. And what do I mean by that? So I've put up here every other year that we have easy visualizations. I actually have data back to DV 2014. I've got 2015 data, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, but Zarthisius has very kindly put this data available. This is data that I'd provided for some of these older years. He's made visualizations of that so that we can see, compare one year to another. So in 2015, Europe region had a cutoff or a limit on a couple of countries, actually it turned out to be, which was Ukraine and Uzbekistan, at around about 14 to 15,000 case number range, right? And you can see that there's a number of holes. The holes on this chart are the blue color. There are a number of holes per 1,000 cases or per 100 cases. This is effectively a percentage, right? And so there are actual cases that go along at a certain level, around about, let's say, 75% or so, 70% perhaps. And then at some point at 14, 15,000, the number of cases per 100 drops significantly down to about 35%. That cliff face is when a country or countries gets limited during the draw process. And as you can see in DV 2015, there was actually sort of two steps. It happened a little bit here, and then again there's another step, and then finally down to the number range that it continued all the way through. If we look at 2017 for EU, again we can see that sort of stepping down. There was a number range, and then it steps down to a different level over a period of a few number ranges. That means again there's more than one country in there that was limited. Again, Uzbekistan and Ukraine, for all the years I've been dealing with DV lottery, they've always been limited. 2018 data shows the same story. There's countries there, and there's an obvious limit that again was about 2 countries, and there was another stepping down around about here, around about 19,000 or so, and yet another one at around about 36,000, 37,000, that sort of range. 2019, same story, same thing. 2020, same story. There was, this is for EU, there was a much greater number of holes, but we can still see that there was a stepping down. There was a limited country, at least one, possibly 2. But we can see, a very different thing. And then right at the end, obviously there's a stepping down, but that's to do with the end of the number range, right? So don't get excited about that one. So you can see for each of these 5 years that I'm showing the visualizations, there is a limitation, or a country that has been limited during the draw process. That is not the case for DV 2021, with the exception of Russia, that is limited, but is limited at such a high number, such a, almost the end of the range, that we could almost assume that that's not limited at all, right? Now, what does that mean for us? It means that we'll have a consistent number of holes all the way through the ranges, and it becomes quite simple to draw the chart if we wanted to draw this sort of chart. It would be very simple indeed. And so now if we look at the data, we go back to the data that we have. We know there are 45,000 cases. I've estimated there are 45,000 selectees. That number, by the way, is principal applicants and the family, the derivatives, and so that's why we divide by the derivative rate, average derivative rate, to come up with the number of cases. So we can predict there are around about 23,000 cases, and there are about 40,000 case numbers. Right, so those 23,000 cases are spread over a 40,000 case number range. So that means that we've got about 58%. 58% of, let me just check that, I think that's about right. I did it earlier. So we have 23,000, so we have something like 17,500, let's say, divided by 40,500. We'll say that that's the highest number, and that gives us 43%. So the holes rate is 43%, right? And that holes rate is going to be consistent throughout the whole number range. So in other words, if you are, and let's just do a little bit of simple math here, if you know that there are going to be 43% of holes in every 100 cases, and you're at case number 10,000, right? Let's just say that. Then in that 10,000, 4,300 of those cases are going to be holes. 5,700 of those cases are going to be real cases, right? So if you're at case number 10,000, you don't have 10,000 or 9,999 cases in front of you. You have 5,700 cases in front of you. That's the importance of knowing the holes, right? Because the maximum case number isn't really important. The people get so hung up on this, and I really wish they wouldn't. I wish they would understand. People look at the historical visa bulletins and the historical numbers, and they say, look at this year, it's just like 2014, or it's just like 2017, or it's just like 2008. Based on the case number. Well, that has no relevance whatsoever, because the case number is not what's important. You need to know not the case number, but how many cases there are and how many holes there are, right? There's always been holes, and understanding the holes is what's important. So if you were at case number 10,000 and there were 5,700 cases in front of you, then you know that you're mathematically safe, because only 5,700 cases are going to be awarded with visas, as a maximum. That's if they all apply, and that's if they're all approved, and neither of one of those two things is true, right? They won't all apply, and they won't all be approved. So you can very confidently say, look, I know the quota is almost 20,000 for the region. I'm at case number 10,000, and therefore I don't need to ask Simon whether I'm safe or not. I don't have to waste his time, because I know I'm safe, right? And you can say the same thing probably at case number 20,000, right? But how about case number 30,000, right? Let's do that math. So if I'm at case number 30,000, and I have 57% of cases are real case numbers, right? Then I have 17,000 cases in front of me. Each one of those cases could be about 2 people. So I have 34,000 people ahead of me. Now, how many of those cases or how many of those people are not going to apply for their opportunity? We don't know exactly, but let's say it's 30-40%. We're just going to do some numbers here, right? So we say 40% don't apply, right? That's a fairly so I'm guesstimating there. I think I've seen numbers that are a little bit higher in previous years, but let's say for whatever reason, only 60% of cases apply, right? So we multiply that number by 6. Now we're down to 20,500 people that actually apply ahead of you if you're case number 30,000, right? And not everyone's going to be approved. Let's say 10% of people actually don't even get approved. Now that means that there needs to be 18,500 visas assigned at case number 30,000, right? That's below the quota. So mathematically, you should be okay if you're at case number 30,000. Now, I've pointed out in previous videos, that's a bit glib. We don't really know that that's the way it's going to work out, and I really don't want people to take these numbers as certainties. But you can use a little bit of common sense to figure out, with the numbers I've given you, where you sit in terms of the case number range, how many people are in front of you, and where does the risky area lie. And so the risky area probably starts at around about upper 20s, 30,000, a little bit more than that perhaps, and anything above 30,000 to the 40,000 range, you're in a risky zone. It doesn't mean you're not going to get an opportunity to have an interview. It just means you're in a risky zone mathematically. What will be the other factors that will come into this? Well, the travel ban or the travel restrictions on the Schengen area could continue. The immigrant ban, which is being challenged in the lawsuit at the moment, might continue. Maybe we lose the lawsuit, and maybe Trump wins the election and extends the immigrant ban next year. I mean, who knows? Maybe the pandemic rages over the winter and closes down embassies over the winter period, because flu-like diseases typically become stronger in the winter when everyone's locked indoors anyway and is in close confines with each other. So there are some factors that could happen that could change this radically. It's not just about the math, right? But in terms of the math, at least we understand what the situation is. If we can understand the number of people who are selectees, and we know the number of cases roughly, and we know now what the highest case number is. So whereas before we thought it was 55,000, we now know it's 40,000 and something, and so you can figure out your position and how likely your case number is to get an interview. Okay. So that's what I wanted to explain to you in Europe region. I know people are going to have questions about this, and I'm trying to provide answers, but I'm also trying to be very clear that I don't want to give precise predictions because A, I'm not an idiot, and I'm not stupid enough to think that I can precisely predict what everybody in Europe is going to do in the next 12 months. But B, there are a lot of factors which I've explained to you which will have different impacts on the whole process, even if mathematically, we understand the thing. We don't know what's going to happen with politics, with the pandemic, and so on, right? So it's extremely unwise for anybody to sort of make definite plans around this. But if you're under case number 20,000, for example, you don't need to ask me. You just need to keep an eye out on the politics, keep an eye out on the pandemic, and the factors like the Schengen area ban and that sort of thing, and see how those things will affect you. Use some common sense, but please don't pester the life out of me with questions about, I'm at case number 7,000 in Europe. Do you think I'm safe? I will just ignore questions like that because if you're not paying attention, I'm sorry, I'm not here to do all the work for you. You've got to do a little bit of thinking yourself. So now you know at least how it works, right? Okay, is there anything else I can do to explain that? I think I've covered everything that I need to do. I could draw a pretty picture like I did for Asia, but it would be basically one block here with all of Europe, 57% of all cases all the way through. It'll be something like that. So it'll be, it's not worth drawing because it's a much simpler thing. It doesn't need to have the stepping down that we see in Asia. Okay, so I hope that was interesting to you. I hope that's given you some food for thought and a better understanding of the process. If you have questions, you can ask them below. I actually prefer that you ask them on my blog. I find it easier to keep track of questions over there. The interface is better for me, as it just works out better. But if you do ask questions below, I'll try and answer them for you. If you could do me a couple of favors. Number one, subscribe to my channel. Doing so helps my channel, but also helps you. You'll get information from a good source. And there are some people on the internet at the moment trying to provide information, and honestly, those people shouldn't be providing information because they just don't know enough about this process to provide that sort of information. They're guessing. Guessing is not good, and it ends up with people coming to me even more confused than they were before because they've listened to so-and-so who's got a web channel who supposedly knows about the DV lottery, and they don't know about the DV lottery. So it just confuses everyone. So subscribe to my channel, get some good information, turn on the notifications with the bell, and give me a thumbs up, like on this video if you've enjoyed this, and all of those things will help me and they'll help you. Okay, good luck to everybody. DV 2021, I'm hopeful for DV 2021. I'm hoping we win the lawsuit, and if we win the lawsuit, we'll get November and December back in terms of processing period. We lost October in terms of processing, so we now have only 11 months in order to process all these cases, which is another reason, by the way, to not be too hung up on the predictions because we've got less time than we had. But 11 months wouldn't be too bad. We can, all of those cases can be processed in 11 months. They can probably all be processed still in 10 months or even, or 11 months. But the longer those bans go on, the more difficult it gets. By the way, I should point out that at the moment, the government is using the Schengen area ban as a reason not to issue visas. So their rationale, which is being challenged in court, is that because they can't, because they're restricting entry to people, either through the travel ban or the immigration ban, either one of them, or the Schengen area restriction, if you can't enter, the government has decided not to issue a visa. That's being challenged in court. That basic premise is being challenged in court. But if that were to continue, if the government decided that the Schengen area ban needed to continue into next year, then a number of countries, 26 countries plus the UK and Ireland, if you live in those countries, you won't be able to get your visa issued, and it's likely they won't even schedule an interview for you. So that could dramatically change the way the year progresses as well. So many factors, that are coming into play here. There's so much up in the air, and we need COVID to be taken under control. We need a political situation in the USA to go back to common sense and decency rather than stupidity. And we need to get back to a more normal processing year. Okay, I hope that happens, and I hope this was helpful. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.